Hey everyone, Eugene here, back again. Hope you guys are all well. Gonna do a best and worst perfume discoveries for 2018. So I'm not gonna show every single one of my pickups. This is actually just a very small portion of things that I've picked up and gotten to know and enjoy as well. Some of them I've actually shown on my channel before, so don't be surprised. It's not like I just want to regurgitate the same bottles over and over. I actually don't find that very interesting at all, but not everybody will watch every single one of my videos. I know I do have my loyal followers, sort of the same way I am a very loyal brand follower as well. I don't really like what's going on in the perfume world right now, so I just kind of stick to the same brands or the same genres over and over again, as you've probably noticed. And I don't like to go outside of that area. I'm just very uncomfortable, so I go into a Sephora and I'm just kind of overwhelmed with a lot of the releases, the high prices and the gaudy tacky packaging, and not a whole lot of poetry behind the perfumes. It's just something with really fancy top notes that dry down to not much interesting. So, and for that reason, I'm always talking about Chanel and Hermes and Guerlain and Frederic Malle, or whatever it's the theme of the day that I'm talking about on my channel. So you'll probably, you'll notice a little bit of a theme in all these bottles. But yeah, 2018 was a pretty interesting year for me. I've, as a huge brand loyalist of Guerlain, I've only picked up 2 bottles from Guerlain this year. One was the new Xerjoff EDP in the newer packaging, and another was L'Homme Ideal Intense, which isn't all that interesting or different from the other Ideal flankers. So there are a couple that kind of interest me, but even with Guerlain jacking up their prices, I'm just gonna hold off a little bit longer and actually pick up things that I do enjoy a little bit more than those products themselves. So I've got a number of fragrances here. I haven't even counted them, so this isn't a top 10 or 15. This is going to be mostly things that I enjoy, but I also got a number of things here that I found not very impressive that I ended up picking up. Most of them have been, I don't want to say complete blind buys, but some of them are. So let's just start out here. Here's one. This is you'll notice a lot of these are actually marketed for women, and that's something that I'm very comfortable wearing, is women's perfumes. I don't really care who they're marketed. Actually, I prefer more women's marketed perfumes than traditional masculine fragrances. And I don't really know the reasoning for that. I just find them a little bit more interesting and maybe even a little bit better crafted. And that's not to say I won't wear, a men's perfume, because I have no qualms about them. But just, women's stuff is more to my liking. So here's, this is Bottega Veneta, and this is their flagship, their first launch. And being a leather goods manufacturer, this is all about leather, and it does kind of remind me of Dior Homme. And there's, Dior Homme was kind of groundbreaking in its time, and it's kind of led up to a lot of, I don't want to say clones, but lookalikes, and this is definitely fit into that genre. And I think it's one of the better replicas, for lack of a better term, of Dior Homme. It's very powdery. It's got that iris thing going on, a little bit of patchouli, really soft, supple leather goods. A little bit of sweetness in the opening, but that does kind of dry down and it disappears. But I love Bottega Veneta for women, the EDP, and ecstatic to have this. And the EDP actually led me to finding, here's I think the only Pour Homme in this collection, and this is Bottega Veneta Pour Homme, the original. I think this is the EDT, which is probably the least favored amongst enthusiasts. Everybody's kind of flocking to the extreme, but this is actually my very favorite just because of its transparent weightlessness. It's a very soft scent that I have no problem picking up on its own. A lot of people complain about the performance on this. You know, I can smell it all day on me, and it's basically, it's very woods, a little bit of citrus, some incense, maybe some vetiver. It's very spicy. I'm gonna put some on here. It's just kind of, it's very green and piney, very woodsy. It kind of reminds me of wintertime in the forest, maybe kind of like this Christmas tree theme going on. Maybe some cypress, but if you've tried Rocabar from Hermes, it reminds me a lot of Rocabar for some reason. And I do own Rocabar and love that one as well. And it took me kind of, you know, a while to figure that out. So I wore this a few times, and then it didn't really click at first, but then I went and wore Rocabar one day and I was like, whoa, okay, I kind of see the similarities here. So if you're a fan of Rocabar, check out Bottega Veneta. So there's also an extreme and there's also a parfum. So, you know, kind of test the three and see what matches up with your personality. So I'm just gonna go, this is not in really order of my favorites. I see a couple here that I like more than others, and I'll save those towards the end, but here's Coco Noir from Chanel, and I've really been enjoying this. As sweet and kind of that mainstream opening that it has, you know, I can get past that, and I much prefer the mainstream women's to the mainstream men's. Like the men's got a, I'm talking men's designers in general, not necessarily Chanel, but they've got a lot of that, it's either ambroxan or they're aquatic, or there's just that kind of, that synthetic quality to them. And I've always kind of preferred the women's designers and, you know, the equivalent of that ambrox or whatever it is they use. There's definitely something mass appealing in here, but, you know, once it dries down, it's very fruity and floral on me. I almost get like that blueberry, creamy, soft, typical Chanel florals in this that I just love so much. Like, I'm a sucker for the Chanel's feminine line. And here's another one, which is actually my scent of the day. And that's Coco Mademoiselle, which I absolutely love. And I own the Intense, which I've also picked up this year, which is not on this list. I much prefer the regular. This is an eau de parfum as well. So they're both eau de parfum, but this one's a little bit softer and less harsh on me, and it's actually a nice, very soft, fruity, floral, with a little bit of sweetness. And you know, from this I get, I don't know, it's just weird to me. It reminds me of a smoky strawberry fruit jam with some creamy sandalwood and the white florals. You know, the jasmine, probably iris, some rose in there, but for the most part, it's a fruity floral executed to perfection, as Chanel always does. Even their, you know, their mainstreams. Big fan of Chanel's mainstreams and exclusives as well. Okay, so let's go to Cartier, and this year I've kind of discovered the Cartier exclusives, and this is Leurs Voyageuses. This is the Oud collection. I've kind of discovered them and picked them all up. This is Oud Santal. So I'm just kind of going to show you one instead of pulling out all six. And what these are, so they're all kind of based around Oud. Oud Radio is the least oudy of the collection, but it's still an excellent fragrance. It's probably, for me, the least interesting of the six. I've said that before, but that doesn't make it a bad fragrance. It's just a spicy, fruity, fresh, woody thing going on. But I think Oud Santal and Oud Musk are probably my favorites. They're all very well crafted. They're not prototypical loud and obnoxious oud fragrances that we've come to know. They're actually very soft. Oud Musk is very sensual, and it kind of represents that musky, furry, animalic quality to it. Oud is very spicy, resinous, scratchy, maybe some patchouli in here. Oud Santal, it's more of a fruity, woody, it's got a lot of plum in here. It's kind of plum themed. It's just absolutely gorgeous. They all kind of have incense and resins and sweet woods without being overbearingly sweet. It's nothing mainstream to them. They're all just really, really well crafted. I mean, some of the best ouds that I've come across, you know, through my journey, without kind of delving into Middle Eastern type of ouds. But here's another from the Cartier exclusives. So this exclusive, that's the L'Heures Voyageuses. And this is just kind of, I think they're called L'Heures, like the hours. And this is Le Treizieme and number 13. So they're all kind of numbered after something, after numbers on the clock that are supposed to represent a genre in perfume. And this one is supposed to represent the Cartier boutique in Paris. I think they're on, you know, their address is 13, whatever street that they're on. And this one is based around the note of leather. And it's a very smoky, animalic, salty type leather that we've come to know a lot of the modern themed cuirs to be around. So it's very dry. I do get some florals in here. And I just think, it is very animalic. I don't think it's very versatile or mainstream at all. It is something quite daring. And something that leather lovers would actually come to probably appreciate. I know I love it. Like, it's obviously in my some of my favorite discovery lists. But yeah, it just kind of falls into that salty leather, that spicy, salty, might be a little bit of incense in here, leather theme. So that's number 13, Treizieme. Here's going to be a huge surprise for a lot of you. And this is actually a Le Labo, and this is Tonka 25. You guys all know my disdain for Le Labo. I've talked a lot of smack about this brand, and it's just mostly for their aesthetics, but I can tell you I love Tonka 25, and I'm not a huge fan of the Tonka No. I have both Tonka Imperial and I have Tonka, the Fève Délicieuse, which I don't really like at all. I can wear and I can fathom the Tonka Imperial, but this to me is way more interesting than either of those. It is quite animalic. It's a very woody Tonka. I definitely get Tonka in here. You know, the joke with Le Labo is the name in the title is that note is never really perceivable in the actual fragrance, but I do get that Tonka. It's a very woody, almondy Tonka. I get a lot of spice in this, and I get cinnamon. I got a lot of spicy cinnamon. I get kind of that Oud 27 vibe to it. So I don't know if there's Oud in here, but you know, Oud 27 definitely comes to mind, and it's definitely got this, it's almost like a salty animalic vibe to it, which is very interesting, and it keeps me on my toes. I love this in the cold weather. It's just absolutely like something that I do enjoy wearing. Tonka 25, very woody, very dry, actually, very pleasant. Okay, I've got a couple of Frederic Mulls here. I'm gonna go with the Jean-Claude Elena, Angeliques sous la pluie, which doesn't get a whole lot of attention at all. But to me, this is a very, it's been a while since I've worn this. Oh, it's a very rooty, very spicy, very earthy, dry fragrance. It reminds me of, you know, I know Angelica is in the name, but it just reminds me more of orris root. Just like digging up a piece of orris from the ground, like just going outside right now, digging up the ground, you know, 2 feet below the ground and grabbing this very green, very veiny, rooty, whatever it is, orris or iris or angelica, I'm not quite sure. There might be some vetiver in here, but it's very prototypical of Jean-Claude Elena's creations with the spices. Could be some incense in here, very light incense, but it's just a gorgeous, very artistic perfume that I enjoy. And one of my favorite pickups. Here's another one from Mall, and this is also a Jean-Claude Elena. Huge fan of Jean-Claude Elena. I don't know what it is about his perfumes, but you know, a lot of them kind of do the same thing. You know, a lot of citrus, a lot of spice. They all kind of come off masculine. There's just something about his work that has me so interested. And this is definitely all about citrus. It's citruses and spice and woods. And it definitely has, you know, the Terre de Hermes Haute Très Fresh theme going on. I think it's cloves, maybe a little bit of cumin. It does have that challenging, I'm going to say old manish vibe going on to it. Very refreshing, very crisp. I can definitely see this being worn with a white shirt, you know, in the summertime. Not short sleeves, of course, because then you'd look like a science teacher, but just a gorgeous, you know, gorgeous, refreshing, crisp scent that I think you can even wear in the cooler months if you want something clean and fresh, which is, you know, not typically something that I'm drawn to. Here is another woman's. This is Dior Addict. I want to say this is the 2nd generation Addict. By that I mean the second repackage, which maybe even the scent has changed. So cap doesn't come off, the top, the sprayer, you got to twist this open. And this is a huge, spicy, powdery vanilla bomb to me. It's definitely got, sorry, some incense. I think that was a half burp. Got some incense. Oh, this definitely went in my mouth. Incense, jasmine. It's got a lot of jasmine, that lady in church that started sweating, you know, it's got that jasmine feature to it. And that's probably what's drawing me to it. It definitely reminds me of modern day Shalimar Souffle Intense, which is the same perfumer, Thierry Wasser. But this is just like 20 years ahead of Shalimar Souffle. I think this is 1990s, 2000s. I can't remember right now, but that's definitely what it is. Dior was definitely burning down, you know, the designer world with their releases. Here's another one. This is vintage Poison, and this was my mother's signature scent when this came out. And I remember when she wore this, she used to say it would change the color of her skin. And it's just a very big, bold fragrance. In Luca Torin's review of Poison, he actually compared this to driving a tank next to cars down the freeway. That's how bold and challenging this can be. I know Christo said something about they banned this in some Paris restaurants. They didn't allow you to come in if you were wearing Poison. That's how loud and obnoxious it was. But I love it. I know the day I wore it in the car with my son, he's like, "What are you wearing?" And I told him it was Poison. He's like, "That's funny because that's exactly what it smells like." I totally disagree. I love this. This should actually, I should have saved this towards the end. Well, we're almost coming towards the end here. It's just got a whole lot of everything that I adore. It's powdery, It's fruity. I get some plum, some woods in here, some sandalwood. There's resins, there's myrrh. It's smoky. There's greenness in here. There's florals. It's definitely got that grandma in church vibe, way more than Dior Addict. Like, Dior Addict is actually wearable. I wouldn't advise wearing this out in public. I've never worn this to work. I would actually love to, and you know, maybe during the holidays when there's less people there, I might actually build up the courage to put on 2 or 3 sprays going into work. So, okay, so that's, I think we got 2 left here. So that's, you know, I'm happy having that at 3rd place. At 2nd, and I know I've showed this in the live stream with Christo, this is also, I want to say it's 2nd generation Opium, which has changed quite a bit from modern day Opium. But even the modern, I think, you know, if you've never smelled any version of Opium, is an excellent perfume in and of itself. There's just a little bit more depth and clarity in the older versions, and I absolutely love Opium. And I've kind of noticing a theme with these older women's fragrances, even some modern Chanels, and they all kind of have this powdery makeup accord to it. It's very waxy, powdery, and it reminds me of a modern day woman's handbag, just with cosmetics and stuff, and kind of the way Dior Homme does. But if this was released today, there's no way this would have been released as a woman's perfume. This is, to me, very, very masculine. It's, again, it's almost as strong, maybe just as strong or more so than Poison. I'm not really sure. I've worn this to work once, and I've gone kind of heavy on the sprayer, and it is very loud and obnoxious, and it can be annoying to the workers next to me. To me, it's all bass notes. There's nothing soft and elegant about it. There's nothing soft or inviting in the opening. It's all just harsh bass notes. To me, it's very screechy. I get a lot of ambers. I get a lot of patchouli. Oh, it's just so sharp, and it just pulls at the nose hairs. And it's just like so many things going on. I don't even want to say there's like probably some civet in here. A lot of florals, incenses, smokes, woods, myrrhs, resins, balsams, all kind of things. Ambers, quite powdery. You know, patchouli is definitely something that screams to me. You know, just looking at the color of the juice, it's definitely vintage. It's definitely, you know, the times of perfumes have changed so much. We've come such a long way from this. When you go in today and you see what YSL is producing, absolute like vile shit. When you look at the new men's Y, it's like complete garbage, trash. I don't even know what to call it. It's literally like spraying Windex or fabric softener on your skin. It just, you know, doesn't make sense. Unbelievable. So I kind of saved this for last, and I think it is, you know, one of, I can't, it's really hard for me to judge perfumes. I don't really get attached to a single perfume, but this is one of my favorites, and this is Cristalle Eau de Parfum. And I would have actually picked up the EDT as well, but for some reason I'm looking for the 100 ml bottle, and they don't carry them here, so I have to go outside somewhere to the US or duty free. But this has definitely also got an old school vibe to it, and it's rooty, it's green, it's floral, it's crisp, it's fresh, and it's ice cold. There's absolutely nothing warm in this perfume, and that's probably what I find so quirky and interesting about this. I can definitely see this being, you know, a summer scent, but having picked this up in the colder weather, that's where I'm wearing it, and it's just such an odd perfume to be wearing in the cold weather, but somehow it works. You know, it's powdery, but I can definitely pick up the rootiness. It's like vetiver roots. You have galbanum in here, you have hyacinth, you have the Chanel florals. It's just so green and ice cold. They call this the heartless Chanel woman. That's somebody that would wear this. I definitely picture just a cold winter's stream, you know, flowing downhill. Maybe some chunks of ice as well going down that stream, with, you know, a contrast of summer florals, which is weird as fuck, right, when you think about it, because definitely flowers can't grow in the winter time, especially when the river's frozen over. So it does definitely have a fresh quality to it. It's got, you know, a powdery accord. It's got those florals. It's got earthy qualities to it. It's definitely vetiver. It's definitely rooty notes. It's just a whole, like just the name itself, Cristalle. It's very clear. It's very, it's got a lot of clarity to it. Okay, so that kind of does it for my favorites. We're gonna go a little bit longer than usual. Hopefully my battery will hold up. Let's get into some of my least favorites. And I know I've shown these all before, and I've only got 4 of them. And I don't even want to talk about these too much. They're just very, actually I'm very annoyed that I picked these up. And I know Dior Homme and its replicas get mentioned a lot. And here's one of them. And this is just, you know, what I find office safe. It's very bland and boring. And when I see people talking about some of the best irises and this comes up, I just kind of scratch my head and thinking, have you people really smelled iris? Because the only thing this reminds me of iris is something that you'd find in a plastic bouquet. Like it doesn't remind me of anything. It just reminds me of chemicals in a bottle. And I've actually never really I don't think I can spend or invest the 8 or 10 hours to wear this to work properly, but I have worn it around the house and it's just so uninteresting and so boring and so generic. It's prototypical of what's being released today in the designer realm. And it's just like, whatever. Like, if you want iris, there's just so many better options than this. And here's another one that kind of falls in the same realm. And my problem with this is the sweetness. It's just overbearing with sweetness in the opening. I want to like this so much because I do like this genre, the iris, the woods, the leathers, kind of like this, where this actually works and it smells good and is sophisticated. This is made to be sold to the masses, and they've just added a whole ton of sweetness to this. Like, I like the packaging. I don't think it's, you know, I don't know, is it gaudy? It can be. I think it's okay. I just can't do with the perfume, unfortunately. Here's another one that I've talked in depth on my channel, and this is from Xerjoff Gao, the Oud, which is just, again, a very boring perfume. Tried wearing this several times and it doesn't work for me. It's not very exciting. It's doesn't develop. It's just nothing. It's literally spraying on my skin, and you know, from the opening notes, it just goes down like a rock in water. There's just absolutely nothing to this. There's no development. There's nothing interesting. It's literally one of the most boring perfumes I've ever worn in my life. And that's unfortunate. The packaging is gorgeous. And that's pretty much the best thing I can say about this is the packaging. I had my mindset on so many Xerjoff. I'm definitely not going to blind buy anymore because of this, but there's still a few that I'd love to test out, but I definitely won't be paying for them. And here's absolutely the worst thing that I've found or discovered this year. And this is Cuir, an exclusive by YSL. And it's such a shame that, you know, they totally blew this opportunity. by far the worst leather-based designer exclusive I've ever come across. Again, just so mass appealing, very sweet. Sorry, battery went out there for a second, but it's just a shame that, you know, they've stooped this low. It's just very mass appealing. It's sweet, and the queer is hardly even noticeable. It's just literally, you know, that safe, dry woods that is so overused today. I don't know, I just can't, like, and I've tried several times over and over and over again, and every time I just get so angry when I wear it, and I'm like, why am I wasting my time? But definitely the biggest disappointment for me this year. I don't even know why I picked this up, to be honest. I thought, you know, I thought it wasn't bad when I smelled it on a card, and I thought, okay, I'll grow to love it, just, you know, but I can't. I just, you know, it doesn't do anything for me except irritate me and make me upset. That's YSL's Cuir. Try it for yourself, you know. Don't go by my word. And if you've tried it, let us know in the comments. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching. There's so many times I go into Sephora or the department store and I want to try what's on, you know, the best sellers list, but I always end up going back to the classics, and that is true love. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll see y'all again soon.